All right, it's 7 o'clock and calling the December 12th Town of Georgetown Select Board meeting to order. Want to remind everybody that the meeting's being recorded and you can see it on our Facebook. Did I get it right that time? YouTube. I'm not going to get that right ever. It's on YouTube. Is there any public comment? And Tim Peavy would like to speak, so.
Started on time.
Wow.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about the Attainable Housing Initiative. I think, as you know, on November 21st, we convened a meeting at the Historical Society. Two of you were out of town. Jonathan was able to be there, and we appreciated that. So I want to bring you up today on what's happened and where we're heading with this initiative. 28 people attended the meeting at this Historical Society and included our state representative, the Island Institute representative, Habitat for Humanity, Bath Housing, and a variety of Georgetown residents who you might consider stakeholders in the housing initiatives, the housing challenges that our town's facing. After the meeting, we surveyed the attendees through an online survey. And out of the 28 people, 26 of them completed the survey and responded. And 100% of those said they felt this was a good initiative and recommended that we go forward, excuse me, and continue the work. Out of those that responded, 23 said they're willing to participate in this initiative. And I think that's a pretty remarkable statement about the importance of this issue to our town and people's willingness to pitch in and work on it. This initiative was in response to several things. I'll mention three of them. In our town's comprehensive plan, there was a housing section, and there were three action items that were assigned to that housing section. Two of them deal with ordinances, and the planning board is working on those. And the third one charged the age-friendly Georgetown team with working on housing challenges in town, specifically pointed towards elder residents, but not limited to those. And our group is looking at all residents and not just dealing with elder issues, because the housing issue and all of these issues cross all the age boundaries in town. Another factor is what's called LD 2003. It's a state law that goes into effect for Georgetown on July 1st.
That's incorrect, Jim. Let's talk offline.
There was an initial earlier deadline, but another law extended the deadline to July 1st next year. And the third one, and maybe the most important, is the housing market in Georgetown has changed dramatically in the past few years. This was exacerbated by the pandemic, and it's continuing, and the housing market is out of reach for many people. It's very challenging. Houses go on the market and then sell above asking price in competing cash offers. So it's changing what property availability to buy and then land buy and build on. So out of the meeting, we formed 4 teams to tackle these issues, along with the Leadership Council to oversee the activity and make sure everything's integrated. We have an aging in place team, which is really an extension of Age Friendly Georgetown, and we'll be expanding our efforts in that area. Another one deals with ordinance review. Anything we're dealing with housing and construction and remodeling affects ordinances. And I've spoken with Bob Tribona and the planning board. He and others are participating in that effort to look at our ordinances and see which ones affect housing. And is there anything we can do to make more somewhat easier to do affordable and appropriate housing expansion in town? There are a lot of resources around the state that deal with this. Island Institute is one, Maine Coast Heritage Trust, Maine Housing Authority, Efficiency Maine, Genesis Fund, the list goes on. And we're going to work with those agencies and see if any of them can provide us support, possibly with expertise and lessons learned in other towns. This is not unique to Georgetown. There is some commonality across coastal towns.
Yeah, I think the closer was better.
Is it?
Are they not able to hear me? Is that it?
They were joining the meeting and I think sometimes it doesn't mute someone automatically, so
Okay.
proceed.
Okay, so we will be working with these external resources to see where we can get some help and guidance. A lot of towns are having successful projects and we want to learn from what works, not try to reinvent anything and see what might apply to our town. And the fourth theme deals with housing options. There's a number of ways to address housing. There's new construction, there's rental, there's short-term rentals, there's congregate housing, all different kinds of things, small houses. And we want to look at all of these and see if they have any applicability to our town. I think it's important to note that we don't have any answers. We don't have any agenda coming into this. What we have is a lot of ideas that we want to explore and see what might make sense for our town. Starting tomorrow and then Thursday, the teams will start meeting to coalesce as teams and try to determine how they want to go about their work. And we'll be working with them to make sure they're moving forward. There are short-term issues. A lot of these are very long-term issues. And we don't expect to solve this problem in the next few months, but we hope to make progress. We want to make sure as the teams develop their approach, we bring them together so that we aren't duplicating efforts, working on contradictory proposals, going out to the same resources with different voices. We want to make sure it's all aligned and moving towards the strategic goals, which we're refining. After that, we hope to take this out to the town residents because this isn't something to be solved by a small group. We want everybody in the town to have an opportunity to contribute their ideas and their needs and their wants for the town. What do we want Georgetown to look like in 10 years? It's changing fairly dramatically in the housing realm. And I think we need to decide as a town, are there things that we can address now to help shape that, to take it in a way that the town as a whole wants to do. So I wanted to come tonight just to bring you up to speed on where we are. We will continue to do that as we go forward. And we're willing to answer any questions and hopefully we'll have a good team relationship going forward to deal with this. So those are my remarks.
Thank you.
Any questions? Or?
Go ahead, John.
I don't have
Well,
no.
this is the form.
Okay,
Thank you. Yep, but we can
anytime.
reach out after the
Let me
meeting.
know. Okay,
Thank you, Jim.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Is there any more public comment?
Yes, David Polito.
Okay, Dave?
You hear me all right?
Yes, we
Just
can.
wanted to, I know you're going to talk tonight a little bit about broadband at the transfer station. And I just wanted to explain a couple of reasons why we're interested in getting broadband there. And the two primary reasons are the possibility of using broadband for security cameras and any security systems. It seems that the least expensive options for security are require broadband, and the other possibility is to use the voice over internet protocol telephone to possibly save money on our phone at the office. So that's two reasons why we are interested in getting internet there.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right. Yep.
Any other public comment? I don't. Oh, Aria?
Hi, can you all hear me? Just a reminder that we're doing the holiday on the wharf tomorrow, starting at 5. And Santa will be arriving on a special transport around 5:30. We'll have treats and hot cocoa and bonfires. So we hope everyone can make it. Thanks. And thanks, Tyler and others for posting on the various media outlets in town.
Okay, thank you. Is that any more public comment? Seeing none, I guess we can continue on. Any items to be added to the agenda? Is that where you usually take over? I can't remember.
Right about here.
Okay.
And I didn't see any that came in today. Did the board have any suggestions?
I have nothing.
Seeing none.
I'm good with what we've got.
Perfect. So we have a scheduled appointment at 7:15 with Terry Taylor. I do want to correct an error that I made on the agenda. It is not actually Axiom Broadband. I should have noted that it was Georgetown Broadband. Axiom manages the customer sign up, billing, et cetera, but Georgetown Broadband is wholly owned by 11 Georgetown residents. And we will stick to that 7:15 because I think we can get through a couple of housekeeping items. The next item of business would be the minutes of the November 28th meeting for review and approval. Those went out to the board yesterday.
I move to approve as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Rich. And then all those in favor?
In favor?
And it looks like
Yeah.
3-0. Perfect. In review, you did have draft financials provided via email for the month of November. We're working on finalizing those due to some banking reconciliations that came in, or the end of the month statements from the bank, rather. Under assessing items, I just wanted to note that the municipal valuation return is due January 3rd. We're seeking approval from the board tonight to have the municipal value. Yes, please.
A motion to approve at the, and sign it for, when the next one's due.
Okay. So effectively, though, the municipal valuation return, and thank you for the motion, Rich, was there a second?
I'll second.
All right, the municipal valuation return is the last item involved in committing taxes, and it's something that has to get turned into the state. And given the due date on the 3rd, we are at the office are very appreciative of the idea to get it done off cycle or outside of a board meeting. So there was a motion and a second. Were there any questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is 3-0, Rich and Bronwyn. I also wanted to give a brief update about the tax stabilization program. That was the program where seniors' property taxes were frozen for the year and ultimately be going away after this year. I just wanted to let the board know that during the commitment process, there was one tax stabilized account that did not take into the computer system. And we in the office are in the processing of contacting this property owner and will assist them in filing an abatement that'll be before the board later. I just didn't want that to come as a surprise, and out of 100 or 99, if one was off, that's not that bad. And very
Tyler,
quickly- yes.
At what point do we request reimbursement from the state for the cost of that stabilization?
That actually is part of the municipal valuation return. So that'll be
Okay.
sent in the end of the month, and then the state will take their due diligence in getting it back to us, but I'm sure it'll be very quick.
Uh-huh, okay. We look forward.
And the correspondence I will run through very quickly, and then we can hop into the scheduled appointment. There was an end of session update provided to you in your packet and mailbox from Representative Allison Hepler. I would flag a lot of good resources and a summary of what went on this year or this past session of the legislature. On the last page, there is a handy resource of good contacts at the state and local level, something to keep on the fridge. Senator Vitelli also put out an email update. She puts them out very regularly, and that was included in your packet. I also shared the Maine Department of Labor's weekly e-blast that was provided by email as well. And it's a handy resource for the board and other folks in town if you get calls from residents looking for help finding jobs, et cetera, and other resources. The Saginaw County Sheriff's Department provided their monthly incident report for November. I'd note that the high in that month was a total of 13 public service calls. And while there was one traffic accident, there were no traffic violations. So that's progress, no speeding tickets. Saginaw County Sheriff's Department, also in your packet, was a flyer for their women's self-defense training classes. It's a good opportunity for area women to get skilled in self-defense. And if folks want to participate or learn more, they can reach out to Deputy Carlton, and I can provide his email offline. There was also the monthly newsletter from the Georgetown Volunteer Fire Department. Great work this month. The Midcoast Council of Governments also provided their November newsletter. There were a lot of good resources in there. If you're noticing a theme, and a lot of good resources this month. And lastly, the Maine Municipal Association has a FOA training on December 18th. All members of the board officially took the class by reading through the packet, but if anybody is interested in signing up for that class, let me know by tomorrow so we can get that into MMA and learn more about the public's right to know. And with that, I think right on the dot at 7:15, we will move into our scheduled appointment with Terry Taylor, which also is connected, just so the board can follow along and members of the public, an item in new business, which is the discussion regarding broadband at the solid waste facility. And so with that, I turn this over to Terry and
Okay, it's pretty simple. In our lease between Georgetown Broadband and the town, we were to provide free installation and free service to the town hall and First Church. We were also supposed to provide, and we have provided a hotspot at the town wharf. The question is, since First Church is delayed, would the town want to provide our free installation and free monthly service to the transfer station in lieu of First Church?
Bronwyn? That's a question, I guess, would be.
With the board, first of all, thank you, Terry, for thinking forward like that and recognizing that you're presently paying about half what we had projected as the lease rent. Or
2/3.
or payback, something like that. Yeah, okay, 2/3. But would the board consider, because I understand that the First Church situation is unsettled, unplanned, unstructured, who knows if or when it will actually take place. Would the board consider honoring the commitment for a free installation at the transfer station, but putting the free service onto the fire station, which paid for installation and is presently paying for the top service, where the transfer station is interested in a lower service level, as Dave mentioned, specifically to use it as the phone, and which will partially pay for the service, and a lower level of service that would only possibly be used for security cameras or security documentation of activity at the site, so that the fire department is the higher use. And frankly, when I made this motion to calculate the rent and property tax in this manner, it did not occur to me that the fire department would be paying for service as well. I thought that they had other systems of communication which would be adequate, but that's where the emergency management focus is at this point in time. So internet there is extremely important and at the highest level possible. And since we're not presently using First Church in any way that would require that, it seems like this arrangement would be more comparable to what we had originally proposed. Go ahead. I asked my
That would
question.
be no problem whatsoever. In fact, to that point, about a year ago, we offered the same deal for the fire department, and it was turned down. So
I did not realize that.
mhm.
I think that now that the budget is happening here at the select board level, it would not be turned down.
No
That's
comment.
I mean,
But no,
Jonathan
free installation at the transfer station, and then picking up the monthly fee for the fire department is no problem.
Okay, I mean, is the fire department hooked up, or have they already paid to get it installed, or how's that?
Oh yeah, they've been on it, I think, since like January, February.
Okay, I was unaware of that, so however if that works out for you, I'm okay with
Yeah.
it, so. Do we need a motion for that, or do we just need to,
I don't know what the motion would be.
oh,
If we have a motion, yeah, we should say that we're gonna pick up a town bill. The Georgetown
How-
Broadband's gonna pick up a town bill, and we're going to assume another bill. The select board is
how about
responsible for
how
that.
about a motion to accept the offer from the Broadband LLC to cover installation at the transfer station for free and to pick up the monthly charges at the fire station? Would that cover it?
With the caveat, the solid waste committee budget will cover broadband service at the transfer station.
Yes. Mhm.
And as amended, I second.
All right, and solid waste. And Broadwood moved, Rich second.
Sounds good to me. That's all the discussion I need, so I'm in favor.
Thanks, Terry.
All right, and that was all in favor, and that is unanimous, perfect. I was still writing down
Thank
the
you.
motion.
I'll say,
And
thank you,
thank you.
Terry.
And thank you, Terry. That was easy.
I like easy.
Yeah.
So do we.
Come anytime.
All right. And so that item of new business has been tackled. We've finished correspondence. We had, get back to the running agenda. We had no other correspondence that came in. Continuing items for the last few meetings of the board had been empty, but we did have a receipt for pumping at 114 Old Schoolhouse, and the records have been updated here at town office. I want to give a brief town administrator update. At the last board meeting, I'd been asked to inquire about whether the Spirit of America ceremony that typically takes place at the county courthouse in winter was still on in the winter, and it in fact had been moved to April. And I will just remind the board when that is a little bit closer. Additionally, at our last board meeting, I had been asked to inquire about the posting of events that multiple select board members may attend. I reached out to MMA and they provided some good language to incorporate in any notices, which they recommend as a good caution, but noted are not required. So this past weekend for the Georgetown Community Center's community dinner and the holiday on the wharf that was supposed to be this weekend and has now been moved, I did in fact create a notice following those guidelines, posted here at town office and down at the wharf. With the change of date, we have posted a new notice down at the wharf. And going forward, I'm happy to keep up this practice. I will just need board members to let me know ahead of time so I have time to get a notice posted.
The only question I have is to make it simple. Can we have a broad statement because of the size of the community? So you don't run around like a chicken without its head every time we might be in the same place.
The answer is no. I asked that question and I wanted to, I like simple and simple's good. The good news is this chicken running around loves going down to the wharf, and I'm making a good habit of posting notices down there too. So it's a good excuse to see other parts of town I don't get to see as often.
So in the event we have a storm and John and I are interacting with whatever, then you have to go down to the
No,
wharf. You can't just say, hey, watch out, these guys might be in the same place. at the
No,
same
but-
time.
their guidance more was specific to events that are going on in town, say a community dinner, the recreation event. If you guys happen to run into each other at the town store, don't feel the need to flee or et cetera. You can still interact. It really is just their recommendation from MMA to make sure there is no question about whether or not business is done outside of a board meeting. Did that answer that?
Sure.
What's your name?
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, I have an update briefly on our FEMA grant on the Robin Hood Road culvert. At our last meeting, I reported that FEMA was in the final steps in issuing an award to the town of Georgetown. Since then, FEMA did approve a lesser amount than was requested, about $10,000 out of the over $300,000 due to a calculation error. The town did appeal this, making a correction, and the folks at MEMA are hopeful that they'll have a final approval within 30 days, emphasis or less, emphasis on less, with their belief that it will in fact be less time. We're also working with Pine Tree Engineering to keep the RFQ process on track regarding the box culvert that would be going in there. And the good news is we've made progress. FEMA's awarded over 90% of the award, and they're pretty confident we'll get the rest with an extra stamp and some paperwork. I also want to note that the tax bills are out tax bills are out and property owners have already come in and are making payments. This is good news. And the last item that came in today was a request from Alex, just to remind folks that dogs need to be licensed. The licenses for this year expire December 31st. And while there is a 1-month grace period, late fees will kick in, and the town does not have an option to waive those late fees on February 1st. So with that, my report would be over. The finance director's update would be tabled tonight, and we would be moving on to committee updates. I would note that we received minutes for the Recreation Committee and the Harbor Committee. We had no new items of membership. And with that, I turn things over to liaison updates.
For me, Recreation Committee, already pretty much covered the change in the time for the Christmas or holiday thing down there at the wharf. The other one was the Shellfish Committee, and I'm gonna leave the copy of their ordinance with some changes that they gone through. So we've got their ordinance to go over until we have to send it in to have it, to see if we need to have it sent in to get looked at. That's all I have for committees.
I don't think.
And
What did Rich say?
I don't have anything, Brahman.
Oh, okay. Conservation met last night. We don't have a lot of information about the energy grant, but we know it's moving forward because they keep contacting Tyler to ask questions. There's a presentation this winter on nurdle plastics in the ocean, which will be really handled by Nancy Kinner, who's running a national international conference, I think, this week on the subject, and it will be a Zoom presentation. On the non-committee liaison stuff, I met with Brian Whalen yesterday on FaceTime. We were going to meet in person, but he came home from his vacation or whatever with a bad case of flu or the cold, and in person was not on my high list of risks to affect. We're working to get a performance evaluation review organized and completed in early January, which will include input from the select board, from the liaison to the fire department, and active membership within the fire department. And I think that's it.
Do you have anything additional on non-liaison stuff?
The community center holiday meal was a hit. On a side note, Tyler and Santa were not seen together. And that's a little weird.
I was very disappointed, Rich, to see at least 50 pictures of everyone with Santa, but the king of the selfie here didn't get one.
I know.
It's tragic. But it was an awesome dinner.
No, I got a picture with Santa. I did not get a picture with Tyler, so that's a little weird too.
That's strange.
Anyway. that's
Your
all I
timing
have.
was off. Your timing was off, Rich. That,
It had to have been.
but wait till Saturday, wait till Wednesday. I think you can have a lot of pictures with Tyler
And Santa.
and
We'll
Santa.
see.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
The only stuff like that I did yesterday or today and yesterday, we went through and cleaned a bunch of culverts from the storm, all that rain. I'm aware, or I should say we are aware, that the culvert over at Charles's Pond looked like the beavers are active again, and I've just got to let the water get down to a little bit so I can see what I can get in there and use to remove whatever is stuck in the thing. So we are paying attention to that. It's just hard with that much water coming down at once. I think that's all I have to add.
All right. And with that, we are back into old business, and we are back with a little bit of discussion about the fee schedules. I provided in your packet a sample letter that I had put together, as well as a sample ordinance to begin the discussion of really honing in on getting some specifics on what the board would like to do in regards to setting a fee schedule. In the past, just as a baseline of background, I've talked that there really are two paths that the town could go. There are some towns in the region that have the select board set a fee schedule annually that do not have an overarching ordinance. There are other towns in the region that do have an overarching ordinance that gives that authority to the select board. I'm not wed, go ahead.
If I may, with the overarching authority, what does the select board do with the fee schedule? Do they approve it annually?
Yes.
Okay, continue.
So really, it's more of an ordinance that documents their internal processes that they follow in some of those other towns. I will admit that in looking at the letter that I put together, there is a spot that I specifically, where we asked committees to move in the direction of implementing these changes of fees in their ordinances this year. I had talked specifically about the board asked you to consider moving. I think we should be a little bit more direct. To that end, the board asks that you move in that direction. But really, this was more to start a discussion for the board to really give me some feedback. So hopefully at the next meeting, I can incorporate consensus. Yes, Bronwyn.
Well, I think first of all, whether or not we have an overarching ordinance, we have to have the individual committees change the language in their ordinances
Yes.
to say that the commercial user fee is due at such and such a time as set by the select board. So we should provide language that allows them to do that, not just that would be consistent throughout the ordinances, not just individual ones. And I think, I mean, I'm not sure about this because there are pros and cons on both sides, but it seems to me that a single once we get the existing fees returned to the authority of the select board, that it would make sense to have an overarching ordinance which said that any fees a committee desires to impose should be have to be approved by the select board, and that the amount of the fee would be set by the select board, which would protect us in the somewhat foreseeable future that additional fees might be added to ordinances. The Solid Waste Committee, as an example, has discussed creating two areas where fees might be appropriate, although they have no fees at the present time. But there's a discussion of how many stickers, transfer station stickers, it's appropriate to give out to a single taxpayer unit. And if that taxpayer is a trust and has 25 summer people, every one of whom wants a sticker, is the town obligated to do that? There's been a suggestion that we should give 2 per property, and if they want more, they should pay for them. There's no fee set. It's not yet coming into an ordinance, but it's a possible additional fee. And another instance would be if we created, as some people have proposed, a class of community haulers who would have limited capacity to bring waste to the transfer station beyond their own personal waste, and perhaps would be compensated for that. That there are no fees proposed at the present time, but if there were to be a fee associated with such a category, we would want this central unit, the select board, to be setting the fee, not to have it go through a committee process. So the committee might recommend a fee be charged, might even recommend an amount, but it would be the select board that would have the authority to impose the fee. So in that sense, it makes sense to me to have both the incremental authority removed from the committee, directed to the select board, and to have an ordinance that says that will set these fees annually and publicize them so that everybody knows what they are. I know there's been discussion of changing fees in the middle of a fiscal year, but I'm really not in support of that. I think that everybody should know what they're going to have to pay for a mooring fee, for a transfer station fee, if there is one, for a commercial user fee. And the other issue becomes, when are all these fees due? Because I know that in the past, there have been various dates that commercial user fees were due for the TOPMB. And dog licenses are always due in January. So what is the, if we're, not that we get to set those fees actually, but when permit fees are due when you make a permitting application, right? So the timeline for establishing a fee schedule might not be as simple as it looks. Is it fiscal year? Is it calendar year?
That's already available, Brahman. All of that information's available. And it would be easy to compile. The town clerk would have the fee schedule and the dates they were due, and it would be minimal work to get it done.
So you'd keep all those dates, whatever they are.
Correct. I think it was just, it was just trying to get everything on basically one sheet of paper. So it wasn't going through each one of the different ordinances, looking for this stuff and the timeline or the price, whatever. It's, you have it all on one sheet of paper, essentially. I mean, it may be more than one sheet, but it's just one place to look at to find all this stuff.
And the other advantage is that you have it all. If you change it, it only changes in that one location.
Yeah,
You don't have
correct.
to change it in 5 or 6 different ordinances.
Yeah, I think that was the other
That's
strong
yes.
point behind
And
that.
the only thing on everything you said that I would push back against is, and I had a discussion with Tyler about this, that right now, the big push, why I wanted to change this 2 years ago, I started talking about this, was at times fees change throughout the year, or there's discussion. Planning board, fill in the blanks. And if we have to wait until the 1st of July or our first meeting of the new select board, then we can keep it as it is. There's no change. It doesn't matter if we have to update every individual ordinance. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but we should consolidate the fees and we should remove when we can certainly approve the annual fee schedule, but if there's a change mid-calendar, we should have the authority to change it without tying our hands with an ordinance saying we can only change them at a set time.
Okay, so
Or requiring a
the
special,
purpose of the overarching ordinance would be to establish that not only do we set the fees, but with certain procedures in place, we can change them with a certain level of notice, like 30 days notice or 10 days notice and a public hearing or at a public meeting, because we don't even really need a hearing if it's at a select board meeting, which is already public.
We absolutely don't need a public hearing. We have the authority to change the fee schedules. Currently, with them being embedded in ordinances, the process goes to town meeting. And that's the only time we can change a fee schedule. So in the event something comes up, we want to give the codes enforcement officer more compensation because of a big project that's happening with a new cell tower or whatever, then the select board can change the fee on a new cell tower application, saying this current is too low for a cell tower, the new fee should be this much.
So
And
Rich, are you in favor of an overarching ordinance, for lack of a better term, that gives this authority to the select board? Or do you feel that simply by making a change to 5 or 6 ordinances at town meeting in June, that that's all we need to do? Which is your position on that?
if we make a change to the individual ordinances that currently have a fee schedule, and we say the fees shall be set by the select board, and they will be available through the town clerk, as long as every ordinance says that, I think that we're covered. I'd put that past Kristen, but I think the conversations I've had with our attorney in the past is if there's a caveat that says who sets the schedule and where they can find the schedule, then we've satisfied the requirements.
And we don't have to say when we set the fee, that the changing of it in the course of a fiscal year is somehow assumed.
It shall, the fee shall be set by the select board is enough. It's quite similar to a few years ago, I think 3 years ago, I pushed to remove the applications with the planning board, the applications from the ordinances. Because we were tied, our hands were
Oh,
tied,
I see.
so I removed it. And now we can make a change to an application at any time around the calendar, and it doesn't affect the ordinance. And that is the same policy that we're not going, this select board is not going to just raise rates without a good purpose. Historically, our fees have been low. I'm just trying to remove our hands being tied to events changing and having to wait till the next town meeting or a special town
Adjusting
meeting.
something or adapting something
that's
when
all.
when things change.
I will say in the attempt of the draft ordinance, I tried to give the board leeway where it clearly delineated where the authority fell. And at the end, I do think that if there is to be changes in fees, that's just my personal opinion. I'm not the policymaker, I'm the implementer, but I do think it's important to make sure when I send out the agenda to the public on the select board meetings, it typically is the morning of a select board meeting. To the people who are on the list of Zoom, we post it at the town office, Chris gets it on the website. But unless you are a due diligent citizen that is readily engaged, you may not be aware that this fee change could be coming. So I would just caution that we're headed that route to make sure that we do give the public and stakeholders good notice to at least make their voice heard, because the process, as labyrinthine as it is now, does give the citizens the ability to weigh in and ultimately have the final say. I think it makes more sense to have the involved people in the know, the select board, set those fees. I think that makes sense. But you do want to make sure that you give the public ample notice, particularly if it's a fee that's going to be coming from them. But that's just something I'd share for.
We can certainly make the public known. But if a mooring fee goes from $10 to $15, I don't know that we need to let the public know they're paying $5 additional for a mooring fee. We're not going to have, unless it's a planning board subdivision or radio tower or commercial solar, I don't see the fee schedule being an impact on the residents of town.
But it could be an impact on the tax bills for the residents in town. And specifically in terms of mooring fees, we have the lowest fees in the state. They're already at $15. And there are issues to do with rental moorings. So first of all, I'm fine with the idea that we do not push for an overarching ordinance at the town meeting in 2024. But I do think we need to give more direction to the committees that have existing fees about how they need to change their ordinance to make this work in 2024. And so the time to start doing that is now. And they will probably want to think that they have some input to the select board about what they think fees should be. Doesn't mean we have to accept their numbers, but they should feel that they have, asking them to give up this prerogative will be easier if they have a route to go to make recommendations to the select board. And I think that it's only appropriate that we give notice at some point that we're reviewing fees and a list of them and what they were and what we propose. But I think the other justification for implementing higher fees is that they're essentially user fees. So the people who use that service, the people who use the winch, the people who actually moor a boat or who rent a mooring, by raising those fees, we reduce taxes overall. And the people who need those fees, that's the concept of a user fee. It's a regressive tax, but so are property taxes. So that's all I'm interested in, the point I want to make, and in securing. I'm in favor of the select board setting fees. I'm in favor of flexibility, but I'm also in favor of ample notification and letting people vent if they want to.
I'm sure if something comes up, it's gonna be, if something comes up that we need to change, I'm sure there's gonna be notice from whichever committees affected. If it's something that if anything comes up like that, we're gonna know about it. And there's gonna be other people in the town that are gonna be spouting off about it for sure. The whole thing, all of our fee schedules are probably gonna come from recommendations from the individual committees anyway. I mean, that's the way it's always been. I don't see that changing at all. If that needs to be part of the ordinance, the one that's covering everything, that's easy enough to put into it as suggested or as recommended by the committees. And I don't have any issues with doing it that way. And we didn't start it last year. We were going to try to implement it start implementing it, but this year committee people already know we're on this, trying to do this or working our way towards that. So if we let them know, like we were saying it's time to start looking at the ordinances and let them know that this is what we are contemplating and what we're trying to do and why we are trying to do it.
The purpose, if I may, John, the purpose for this meeting is if we approve this initiative, I will reach out to Kristen for a statement for the ordinances. If this was disapproved, it was pointless to reach out to the town attorney for a statement. So all we need is an approval to move forward, and we can iron out if we want the ordinance or not at a future date. We'll see what the statement in the individual ordinances says, and then we can flex to that. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. And as John said, we're not just going to change. Harbor Committee, someone is going to come up, the TOPMB will come up to us and say, we think this fee is too low. We think it should be this. The select board will discuss it in a public forum and we'll make a recommendation that as of, this is 13 December,
Right.
So as of 1 February, this new fee is going into effect, or 1 June, or whatever the case may be. We certainly don't have to, nothing is gonna be a snap decision to change the dog licensing fee. There aren't gonna be any secrets.
Well, that would set my statute.
Yeah, right. And the other thing I want to say is that I know that the Harbor Committee has been told many times that their fee structure for moorings is exceedingly low, but they're happy with that because that's all they want to pay. And they say, well, we don't spend all our money every year. We give money back. So we, the Harbor Committee, don't need this money, which ignores the fact that we, the town, do need this money. And it's a resource and it's an asset that the town needs to manage. So they need to get a larger perspective. But that's also a reason for bringing the structure of the fees outside of the individual parochial committees. So that's great, Rich. If you want a motion to generally move forward to consolidate the fee setting structure within the select board, I'm all for it.
Second.
Happy to make that motion.
I think we've discussed it. I'm all for it.
And just to clarify, the next step is you're gonna be reaching out to Kristen to get that language, and at that point, we'll determine whether or not we need overarching or not, and until then, it's in abeyance and.
We have plenty of time
Okay.
to amend we have 6 months. It'll be here tomorrow, but we have 6 months.
Perfect.
Right, because we can't change it until town meeting, whichever way it
Right.
goes, right?
Right,
Okay,
So, all in favor?
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, that discussion is complete for tonight. We've completed our first item of new business. On the agenda, there had been a discussion regarding payment of the addressing officer and emergency management director. I'd request that be tabled tonight for the next meeting.
Motion to table.
Second.
All in favor? And
Agreed.
3-0, thank you. And the last item of new business was the date of the second December meeting. At the
Ah.
last meeting, we did note that the next meeting falls on a day town office is closed.
I move that we schedule the second meeting in December for the 27th, unless there's a conflict with some other committee.
I don't know, I'll be in town. We need that. We just agreed to signing this tax paperwork in the second warrant.
Mhm.
What else is going on in December?
The things we tabled tonight and potentially other things. I mean, if it's half an hour meeting, it's fine with me. But if there are things to discuss, I think it's easy enough to put it on the calendar. At least for me, it is.
You want
So-
to move it from the 26th to the 27th?
Yes. From a Tuesday to a Wednesday. Yeah.
It was the stuff that.
I certainly do not want to,
I don't
Ask-
want to be in town. I can
Mhm.
zoom in.
I
Okay.
certainly don't want to ask staff to come back in for an evening meeting on a day that we
Yeah.
have already voted on and agreed the office would be closed.
No, I was just thinking, push it to the 10th of January. The world won't end if we miss it. But I'll zoom in.
Okay, so someone moved, is there a second?
I'll second it.
And you'll zoom in?
Yeah.
I
All
just
right,
assume have
all in favor?
I'm in favor.
Okay,
What?
yeah.
Okay, 3-0.
Having a meeting on the 27th of December. Sure.
And we do have on items for signature, the warrant is complete and ready for signature, and it'll be available tomorrow as well. And there is no executive session tonight. The last item would be if there's any additional public comment, which is you.
Is there any additional public comment this evening?
You could step
Yep.
up and tell
Uh,
us what a great job we did.
Bob, Jesus Christ. Bob, sorry.
Yeah, a couple of quick things. with regard to the next select board meeting, had a discussion this afternoon with Chris Wilcoxon. There are no pending permits for the planning board. So I was gonna be going out to the planning board and recommending that we not have our next scheduled meeting on the 20th.
Yeah.
So that Wednesday would be open to the select board if you wanted it. Just a comment. Whatever you do with it is up to you. But I do not expect to have a planning board meeting on the 20th.
And would you normally have one on the 27th?
No, the,
First and third.
First and third. Yeah.
Ah,
we have one
okay.
on the 6th and 14 days later is the 20th.
okay.
The second comment I had is on the fee schedule discussion. I would appreciate the language for the changes to the ordinances as soon as possible. I've already started changing the language in the planning board ordinances, the applicable planning board ordinances. So if we want to do something different, basically I'm saying that the fee schedules are set by the select board, and to get to find out what the fee schedules are, go to the town website, in very rough language. It'd be finessed a little bit more than that, but we've already started on that process as far as the planning board goes. The last thing I have was, I was out on the road earlier this morning, and I came to the intersection of Bay Point Road and 127. And as usual, there was a lot of ice just past Bay Point Road on 127. This is a hazard. We have several places in town where this condition typically occurs, on Harrington Hill and at the approach to Seguinland Road. I think in the interest of safety of our citizens and the rest of the population that comes into town to go to various places in town, something needs to be done with these sections of road where it traditionally ices up when there's no precipitation. It's just moisture coming out of the ground. It's a very dangerous situation, and it also puts an extra burden on the fire department. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? I do not see any. So is
Motion to
next
adjourn.
one, motion to adjourn?
Second,
Very well.
I love you all, but it's nice to say goodnight.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ah,
All right.
Good night, folks. Merry Christmas.
you have a wonderful holiday.